going on, everybody? It's Rurajin, and welcome back to another episode of Sleeper Sunday. Sleeper Sunday, for those of you that don't know, is a series I came up with showcasing fun hidden decks you may not know about that can do quite a bit of damage in the proper hands. We'll be going over a basic deck list, strengths, weaknesses, what can be done to make the deck better, and of course a few replays to see the deck in action. In today's episode, we're going to be going over the winner of this month's poll, Galaxy. Galaxy, frequently shortened to, or actually lengthened to Galaxy Eyes, is an archetype of mostly light monsters released in Photon Shockwave in November of 2011, with heaps upon heaps of support throughout its lifespan, with the newest support coming out of the Light Duelist pack, or for us TCG plebs, the next Maze set. They're an Xyz archetype used by Kaito in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal / also technically Arc 5 series that revolves around spamming the boards with materials to Xyz summon and getting some very large monsters while you're at it. Basically, they punch really hard. And a final note is, while they're all technically separate archetypes, Galaxy is very closely linked to Photon, Tachyon, and Cypher archetypes as well, though mostly the former two, as the latter was a sort of spin-off in Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, and you'll notice quite a few of each archetype card based throughout the video, and including the subsequent boss monster being Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon himself. That being said, let's talk about that boss monster. Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon is a level 8 light dragon. They're basically all light monsters. I don't think we play any of the dark extra deck cards. That says you can special it by attributing it to monsters with 2000 or more attack, and then has a battle phase effect that is supposed to work against Xyz monsters that you banish it in the Xyz, and the Xyz comes out with no materials, and so it gains attack for each material that it had, and the opponent loses materials and loses value, whatever. It's irrelevant nowadays. But it's really neat though, because compared to Blue Eyes or Red Eyes, this anime dragon archetype with eyes of a certain type can actually summon itself from the hand instead of being a completely dead brick. Well, I guess the Primate cards kind of help fix those problems, but you know what I mean. It doesn't come up all the time, but it does come up here and there to actually summon itself, so it is pretty cool because some of the Xyz monsters or some of your other cards have very cool effects when Galaxy Eyes is summoned, or if he's under a monster as material. The other main deck Galaxy Eyes Dragon is a Galaxy Eyes Afterglow Dragon that says if you control a Galaxy Eyes monster, you can special it from your hand in defense position. If it's detached from an Xyz to activate that monster's effect, you can take a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon from your hand or deck and either special it or attach it to an Xyz monster you control's material. Then if you activated this effect during the battle phase, double the attack of all number Xyz you control. So this card was insanely hyped when people were waiting for it to come out a few years ago. Like, it took a while for this card to come out, if I recall correctly, but honestly the wait was worth it because this card kind of carries the entire deck. Your guys are already very, very large, but keep in mind now you're doubling the attack of those monsters, and this card, as you'll see in the replays, will help you go for instant OTKs with cards like Neo Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, which again you will see, especially when we talk about it. But being able to have that monster gain attack, and then double the attack with Afterglow, and either attach the Galaxy Eyes for more effects to trigger, or to just have an extra 3k body on board, is kind of ridiculous. Photon Emperor is the first pure Photon monster that says if this card's sent to the grave except from field while another Photon or Galaxy is on your field or in your graveyard, you can special it in defense position, and then after you normal or special summon it, you get an additional normal summon of a light monster this turn. So Photon Emperor is pretty cool because even though he does like prevent himself from triggering the effect if he's sent from the field to the grave, it does trigger when you send him from the hand, from the deck with their many foolish effects, or even when you detach him from Xyz material, which is really cool. And the additional normal summon may seem kind of weird, but you actually do have quite a few little low level 4 monsters that really want to hit the board, especially for a normal summon, which is really cool. Photon Emperor is overall pretty chill guy. Their final main deck, level 8 in this list, is Galaxy Brave that says if it's in your hand, you can reveal a Photon in your hand to special it, and if you do, its level becomes the level of that Photon monster, so it's either going to be level 8 or 4, and if it's normal or special summon, you can target a Galaxy in your grave, and this card's attack and defense become that monster's attack and defense. So the first effect is pretty decent for swarming. You can use it either for a rank 4 or a rank 8, and the second effect might seem a little bit niche, but keep in mind you can copy the attack of something with over 2000, like the next card we're talking about, Galaxy Soldier, and then that means you contribute it for Photon Dragon or to summon their Link monster Galaxy Eyes Soul Flare, who kind of has the same summoning condition as Galaxy Eyes. Speaking of Galaxy Soldier, everyone and their grandma basically knows this card if they've ever seen Cyber Dragon in their life, but basically you can pitch another light from your hand to special it, and then you can add a Galaxy from deck to hand, including another copy of itself, though of course you can only use the search effect of Galaxy Soldier once per turn. This card's pretty cool for swarming, it helps go into Soul Flare pretty well, and in this deck in particular, compared to something like Sidra, which is only searching another Galaxy Soldier, you can add basically any of your really good monsters monsters, especially things like Afterglow. I think the only problem with Galaxy Soldier is that because he's a level 5 and he's not an 8 or a 4, you can't really use him for Xyz plays unless you have something that level modulates, but it's not really the end of the world most of the time. You also can't see it because of my face, but we're playing one copy of Photon Thrasher, which says you can special it while you control no monsters. It's just another way to get a body on board, and this is a blind second deck, so it's not really going to be a huge deal, and getting that extra body can be pretty helpful. Though, admittedly, this card, now that there is a bunch of more support that could take its place, can probably very easily be cut from the deck. I just haven't gotten around to actually updating this list for the most recent Tachyon support. One of my favorite cards in the deck is Photon Vanisher, that says it must be special summoned from your hand while you control a Photon or Galaxy, and it can't attack the turn it's special summon, but on summon you can add a Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon from your deck to the hand, and an Xyz monster summoned using it gets to banish any monster destroyed by battle with it, and that is pretty solid. Not the second effect so much as it is the free swarming, as well as the effect to add a Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon. Being able to search Galaxy-Eyes directly from your deck has a lot of application because you can special it from your hand very frequently, not just due to other effects in the archetype, but even due to its own effect, especially because Photon Vanisher has 2000 attack, which is really cool. Though I guess the supplementary Xyz monster effect can come up if you are ending on something like your Galaxy Photon Dragon, which is your best rank 4. Photon Orbital, which I'm pretty sure now that I think about it, is actually supposed to be like a retrain of Orbital 7, which is really cute. Says during your main phase, you can target a Photon or Galaxy you control and equip this monster from your hand or field to it. It gains 500 attack, it cannot be destroyed by battle, and you can send this equipped card to the grave to add a Photon or Galaxy from your deck to your hand. You're almost never using it for the stat boost or the battle protection or anything. You're not really going to keep it on board very long. It's basically just an extra 3 copies of any Photon or Galaxy in your deck, though admittedly it is a hard once per turn, but it's still really, really good to be able to search basically anything you want, and this card's free because you can use it from hand instead of just on field. Galaxy Wizard is kind of one of their older cards now that I think about it, and I remember I had one of these cards when I was little and I thought it was terrible because it has 2 effects that kind of conflict with each other. It says once per turn you can increase this card's level by 4 until the end of this turn, or basically alternatively you contribute it to add a Galaxy card from deck to hand. You honestly kind of use either or effect depending on the scenario with this card, and a lot of the time I'm actually summoning it with its effects negated off of something like Galaxy Trance, so most of the time its effect isn't even super relevant, so maybe this will get cut for something like the Tachyon Cloud Dragon in the future, but Galaxy Wizard does have some pretty decent applications. Galaxy Summoner is a light level 4 that says if it's normal or special summon, you can target a Photon or Galaxy in your grave to special it in defense position. You can target one other light you control and make its level become 4 until the end of the turn. Galaxy Summoner is pretty cool because it functions very well with things like Photon Emperor, as well as the fact that you don't really normal summon too often in this deck anyway, and also you have many ways to get it back from the graveyard so that you can recur it for that Photon Emperor normal summon if you summoned it off Galaxy Trance, for example, and at the end of the day can also be a very strong grind card. Now onto the card that single-handedly carries this whole deck in my opinion, we have Photon Jumper. We're gonna ignore the first effect, period, it doesn't really matter, but the second effect says if this card's sent to the graveyard, you can add a Photon or Galaxy spell or trap from your deck to your hand. Now, basically, you play 4 different ways, I believe, to dump this card, and a 5th copy, technically, if you count Rhoda, being able to add it, and then you can pitch it off of something, or you can normal summon it and do whatever, because being able to search for your Galaxy spells and traps are just really, really good, even including the ones I'm not playing, but for the ones that we are playing, we have Galaxy 100, Galaxy Exposition, Galaxy Trance, and I guess technically Hyper Galaxy, which should be over here, even though this card's kind of mid. Anyways, you have quite a few cards that you can search, and the best one probably is Galaxy 100, which says on activation, you can actually send a Photon or Galaxy card from deck to grave. This is one of your many ways to dump Jumper, but if you grab it off of Jumper, you can actually dump a Photon Emperor instead, which is really, really good. But also, if Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon is summoned to your field, you can look at your opponent's extra deck and either banish a monster from it, or you can special one of their number monsters to your field. So, admittedly, the second effect isn't going to come up very often, the special summon part, but being able to just banish something if you are forced to go first is pretty good. You can cut off things like Zeus, Access Code, or really important combo pieces. For example, Malice doesn't have a super easy way to recur outside of like Heart Scripter, and at the end of the day, you can just banish the Heart Scripter. And I suppose this can also apply towards decks that would like to summon something on your turn. You can easily use this to bait out something like an IP into an SP so that you don't banish their SP and you get to banish something else instead. Basically, this card is pretty damn solid, and I guess if you can summon a number, that's really funny, especially in combination with Afterglow. We already mentioned Foolish Burial as an additional way to dump Photon Jumper, one of the best of the spells and traps in the deck. I mean, you only really play good ones from Galaxy anyway, but one of the better ones is Galaxy Exposition that says if you control a level 5 or higher Photon or Galaxy, you get to special a level 5 or higher Photon or Galaxy directly from your deck. This can include Galaxy-Eyes Photon Dragon, it can include Afterglow, which it typically does for me if I'm not adding this card, it can include Photon Photon Emperor, it can include Galaxy Brave. You have a bunch of different things that you can go for, but most certainly you're going for one of these three up here. Possibly the best spell in the deck is Galaxy Trance. It says pay 2,000 life points, then target one Photon monster in your graveyard, special summon both it and a Galaxy monster from your deck with the same level, both in defense position, and if you do, each monster's attack becomes 2,000, also their effects are negated. You can only activate one of these per turn, and you can only summon Photon and Galaxies the turn that you activate this card. Not really a huge deal there. This card is easily the best card to search off of Photon Jumper, essentially, because you're going to dump Jumper off something like 100 or Foolish Burial. You're going to trigger that to grab Galaxy Trance, and then Trance summons Photon Jumper, and then either Galaxy Wizard or Galaxy Summoner, so you can add back usually from graveyard later, so you can instantly go into technically a Soul Flare Dragon, but most importantly, something like a Galaxy Photon Dragon, which is one of the best cards in the extra deck. It's probably the closest to a one-card combo that this deck has, being able to dump Jumper and then go for stuff like that. Otherwise, it kind of struggles at times to extend past a lot of stuff, but if you can dump the Jumper into grave and then get this, you are on a very, very good track. Number's Last Hope is technically treated as a Galaxy-ized card, so it is a Galaxy, and it says pay half your life points to target 2 monsters in your graveyard, special summon both but negate their effects, then immediately after this effect resolves, Xyz summon a number Xyz using only those 2 monsters, but for the rest of the turn you can only special summon one more time from the extra deck. So basically, as this card describes, it is sort of a last hope. Basically, when all of your other resources have been depleted or in a grind game or something, you can slap this down when it's like the last thing you can use, summon back 2 monsters, Xyz summon into something like a Prime Photon Dragon, so you can go into a Neo Galaxy Prime Photon Dragon, and then go for a really easy OTK there. It doesn't come up too often. In fact, I'm not even sure I use it in any of the replays, but again, it's basically a last hope and it'll be your last ditch effort, so you try not to use this too often. And then Hyper Galaxy is the final Galaxy spell or trap we play. It tributes a monster with 2,000 or more attack except Galaxy-ized Photon Dragon, and then targets one monster opponent controls with 2,000 or more attack and tributes it, and if you do special a Galaxy-ized Photon Dragon from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Easy way to get Galaxy-ized directly from your deck, or I guess technically from your hand or graveyard as well in case you need to, but it's also just pretty solid removal, even though it does have to target before tributing, but I guess it might be a little too strong otherwise. But I mean, I think the 2,000 or more attack restriction's already like good enough, you know. Doesn't come up too often, similar to Number's Last Hope, but it is pretty decent. We do also have, of course, the one copy of Rhoda to search for Photon Jumper, and we are playing things like Talents, Dark Ruler, Lightning Storm, and Harpies because this is, at the end of the day, a blind second deck. Moving on to the extra deck, which I had to quickly rearrange because I realized it was in the reverse order of how I wanted it. We have one copy of Galaxy Photon Dragon. It is a rank 4 that requires only 2 level 4s, that says other light monsters you control gain 500 attack, and you can only use each of its following effects once per turn. You can attach a material from it to either add a Photon or Galaxy card from your deck to your hand, or send it to the graveyard, and if a light monster is summoned to your field, you can target one of those monsters and make it become a level 4 or 8 until the end of the turn. This card does everything. It helps you push for OTKs, it helps level modulate when you have something like a Galaxy Soldier that needs to be, and it adds or dumps any Photon or Galaxy card, which will typically set up basically anything you want. Considering how many extenders this deck already has, you can just grab whatever you need to coincide with that. It's so crucial to get this out, which is why Photon Jumper into Trance is so important, because it gets you access into this. Your other important rank 4 is Starleech Photon Blast Dragon that says if it's Xyz summon, you can special a Photon monster from your hand. While it's on the field and Xyz summoned, your opponent cannot target monsters you control with 2,000 or more attack with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And once per opponent's turn, quick effect, you can attach one material to target one of your Galaxy-ized Photon Dragons that is banished or in your graveyard and special summon it. That last effect won't come up too often, but the protection is very solid, and also the Onyx Sea summon to special a Photon monster from your hand is most definitely supposed to work with Photon Vanquisher, because this will straight up just add it to your hand, and then once you go into this with it, it'll just special the Galaxy-ized from your hand. Your final rank 4 is number 39 Utopia Rising that says on special summon, you can target a number Xyz in your grave except Rising, special it in defense position, and then you can attach all materials from this card and attach them to that monster instead. And if you Xyz summon, you can special this card from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. This is basically just a grind card that I actually ended up never having to use, I don't think, because you don't really go into a grind with this deck. You either OTK or you fuck up the OTK or go first and like your opponent kills you, but it is nice to have it as an option. One of their newer cards is Draglixion that requires 2 level 8 monsters. It says if it's special from the extra deck, you can add a Galaxy or Tachyon card from your deck to your hand. You can attach 2 materials from it to special a rank 8 Dragon Xyz with 3,000 attack from your extra deck by using this card you control as material. Then you can attach a Galaxy monster from your extra deck to it as an additional material. So far, I actually haven't made this card, shockingly enough, but I feel like it's really, really strong. One of the big problems is that it does conflict a lot with Galaxy Trance. Because it's not a Galaxy or Photon card, I never have an opportunity to make this card because most of my hands rely on getting that Galaxy Trance, which locks you into Photons and Galaxies. So it is really unfortunate, but this card is very, very strong if you can pull it off. It adds any Galaxy or Tachyon card, gets to special any rank 8 Dragon exceeds with 3000 attack, of which, trust me, there's a lot more than you probably think, and you use this as material and transfer its material, so it'll have a bunch of materials, which is really good. One of the more classic Xyz monsters is Galaxy-ized Tachyon Dragon. It requires 2 level 8s and says once per battle phase, at the start of your battle phase, you can attach a material from it to negate the effects of all of the face-up monsters currently on the field, and also their attack and defense become their original attack and defense in case there was any disruption for their stats. And during the battle phase, if you activated this effect this turn, each time an opponent's card effect resolves, this card gains 1000 attack until the end phase. Also, it can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. You don't really make this card too often unless you really need to negate everything. I guess something that would have like massive protection, or I don't know, Makonko monsters or something. But otherwise, there are just so many other better options to go into, and it's another reason why we also don't play like its evolved form or anything like that, because it's just kind of, yeah, especially compared to the next ones. Next up, we have Galaxy-ized Prime Photon Dragon that has a bunch of effects, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not even gonna read it because it doesn't matter, you're immediately turning this into a Neo Galaxy-ized Prime Photon Dragon. This is the higher rank version of it, which was the cover card of Photon Hypernova, by the way. There was more than just Castro cards in that set. That says you can also exceed some of this card by using number 62 Galaxy-ized Prime Photon Dragon you control, and at the start of your battle phase, you can attach 1 material from this card. This card can make up to 3 attacks on monsters during this battle phase, and if it has Galaxy-ized material, it is unaffected by your opponent's monster effects, and it gains attack equal to the combined levels or ranks of its attached materials times 100. This card is the bread and butter, the absolute best card in the entire deck, especially due to Afterglow Dragon. You're going to see in every single replay almost that I win, it is literally make Prime, make Neo Prime, detach Afterglow at the start of the battle phase, effective Afterglow, summon or attach. Now you have like a 13,000 attack triple attacker that is unaffected, and also you might also have a Galaxy-ized to the side to do even more damage if it needs to swing direct. This card is utterly absurd, and the fact that you don't even need to rank up into it is just so ridiculously strong. Moving on to some other stuff in the extra deck, though, we have Galaxy-ized Full Photon Dragon, one of my favorite cards from my childhood. I owned 2 of these, and I turned 1 into an Orica, but it has 4,000 attack and 300 defense, so it's a very big body, but you can also Xyz summon it by slapping it onto any Galaxy-ized Xyz you control, period. You also get 2 transfers of materials, of course, and then once per turn, the equip effect doesn't really matter, but you can detach a material from this card, then target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Solid removal, super easy to access on a very large body. I don't think I made this card, nor did I made its Cypher counterpart, which we'll get into, but they're both pretty damn solid to go into. It's just really nice cards to have. I'm not really going to explain Hope Harbinger too much. Everyone knows Hope Harbinger. You negate a spell card and attach it as material. But it also has attack redirection, I suppose, and also has another effect that I don't even really want to read it. It doesn't really matter. You make this to negate spells. Galaxy-ized Photon Lord, most people actually know at least slightly because it is a monster negate. However, it has a bunch of other effects as well. If it has a Photon card as material, it can't be destroyed by card effects. If you detached a Galaxy card for its effects, you get to destroy the card that you negated, but also during your opponent's turn, even in the same chain if you'd like to, you can take a Photon or Galaxy card from your deck and either add it to your hand or attach it to this card as material. So you can make it protected on your opponent's turn, or you can search for a follow-up card, or honestly just have it there on your turn even as a monster negate in case you're scared of something like Nibiru for the rest of your turn. This card's pretty good outside of its archetype, but it's really solid in this one. Moving on to the Cypher trifecta, we have Galaxy-ized Cypher Dragon, which allows you to detach a material to steal a face-up monster your opponent controls, but only this card can attack directly for the rest of the turn, so it doesn't really come up too often, but also while you control that monster, its attack becomes 3000 and its name becomes Galaxy-ized Cypher Dragon, and its effects are negated. So I mean, it's not like super bad. At least you contribute it for like your Galaxy-ized Photon Dragon, but you don't really make it too often. But you can also summon Cypher Blade Dragon, the next Cypher monster, the same way that you can summon Full Armor Photon Dragon by using a rank 8 Galaxy-ized. Well, this one has to be a rank 8 at least, but also says you can detach material to then target 1 card on the field instead and destroy it. And if this exceeds summon card you control is destroyed by battle with an opponent's attacking monster or an opponent's card effect and sent to your grave, you can target a Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon in your graveyard and special summon it. So I guess the idea is to go into Cypher and then into this and then get the pop, and then like if it dies you summon back the Cypher Dragon, but typically you're just slapping this on top of something else for some quick removal, just like Full Armor Photon Dragon. This card just has slightly less attack with a slightly better pop. The final Cypher Xyz monster is Galaxy Eyes Cypher X Dragon, that you can also Xyz summon by using a Cypher Dragon monster you control as material, which technically can be summoned with the monster that you steal off of Galaxy Eyes Cypher Dragon, though this card can't attack, which is kind of dumb. But you can attach 2 materials from it, and then your opponent cannot target light monsters you control with card effects until the end of their turn. And then once per turn during your standby phase, you can return 1 rank 9 or lower Dragon Xyz from your graveyard to the extra deck. Then you can special that monster from your extra deck by using this card you control as material. So you can kind of tag this out and also give some targeting protection, which is pretty solid. But honestly, I really haven't had this card come up, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just playing the deck wrong. Our final Xyz monster is, of course, Zeus, because, I mean, while we don't make it too often because we're locked under Galaxy Trance, it's Zeus. At the end of the day, you're playing an Xyz deck. And the final card in the extra deck is their good Link monster, at least, Galaxy Eyes Soulflare Dragon. It requires 2 lights, including a monster with 2,000 or more attack. It says if it's Link summoned, you can target 1 Photon or Galaxy monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. During your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can discard a Photon card and a Galaxy card, or discard a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, then target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls and destroy it. This card's really good at grabbing things like Galaxy Summoner that you specialed off of Galaxy Trance when its effects were negated, so you can normal summon it either for your regular normal summon or off the one granted to you off of Photon Emperor. It also can technically serve as a disruption on the opponent's turn, but let's be real, your opponent's not getting a turn. That is actually going to do it for the deck profile. Wow, I thought I made great time, and we've already been like 30 minutes into the video. Jesus Christ, wow. That is way longer than I thought. I thought I was going so fast. But regardless, let's go ahead and move on to the stuff that we don't play but could. We have Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Primal. Okay, so basically I'm going to include like almost everything that isn't Dragluxion from the newest wave because I don't know how to utilize it within the deck. I didn't really get a chance to. I didn't get to update my build. So some of these are probably very, very good and very valid, especially 7th Tachyon to put into the deck. So I'm not really going to explain why we don't play these cards, because why we don't is just because I haven't had a chance to put them in. But Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Primal is at level 8 that says when a dragon exceeds a clear an attack, you can attach this card on the field to as material. Actually, it's a mandatory, and says you can only use each of the following effects up once per turn. If a dragon exceeds is on the field quick effect, you can special it from your hand to either field, and then the owner adds 1 Tachyon spell or trap from deck to hand. This is basically the only way to search for Tachyon Transmigration, which I'll just go over now because everyone has yapped about Tachyon Transmigration before. It says if you control a Galaxy Eyes monster, activate this as Chainlink 2 or higher, negate the activations of your opponent's spells and traps and monster effects activated before this card in this chain, and if you do, shuffle the negated cards on the field into the deck. But if you control a Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon monster, you can activate this card from your hand. So basically you're supposed to like use this on your turn when you're going second in order to negate a bunch of stuff that your opponent has as disruptions for you. But let's be real, most of the time this isn't going to be negating more than 1 or 2 things, which is still pretty solid, especially for a hand counter trap. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be as crazy as people are saying. Like, let's just be brutally honest. But it is a pretty good card. Tachyon Cloud Dragon has a Poplar effect to let you special it if it's added to hand, and then not on summon, but you contribute it to special a Tachyon from deck or grave, which can include summoning Tachyon Primal for the search. And then also if you special a Dragon Xyz, you can target one of them and attach this card as material from the graveyard. And if you special a Dragon Xyz monster, you can target one of them and either attach this card as material from the graveyard or hand. Basically, you're going to be adding this off of either like 7th Tachyon or from your grave off Tachyon Spiral of Destruction in order to trigger the effect. Unfortunately, there's not too many ways to search this, if I recall correctly, otherwise. But being able to tag out into Tachyon Primal is pretty damn cool, and then also being able to attach this material for, I guess, an additional maybe like a stat boost or something, I guess, on Prime Photon Dragon is also pretty neat. Though I feel like there are ways that this card could be stronger. Galaxy War Drake says if a level 4 light monster is special to your field, you can special this card from your hand or grave, but banish when it leaves the field. You can target one other light monster you control, and its level and this card's become 8 until the end of the turn. And you cannot special the turn you activate either of these effects except light monsters. This card's pretty damn good as well at turning something like a Galaxy Soldier, or like, you know, I guess one of your lower level things here, such as a Photon Vanisher or even a Photon Jumper, into an 8. pretty cool as well, because sometimes you have too many level 4s and not level 8s to get your rank 8 plays kickstarted. There's also 7th Tachyon, which everybody basically knows because it's really good in Ryzeo, but it's not in the TCG yet. But you can reveal a number in your extra deck with a number between 101 and 7, and then add a monster with the same type and or attribute as the revealed monster, and a level equal to its rank from your deck to your hand, and then you place one card from your hand on top of the deck. Basically, it's a search for almost anything you want, and you can play almost any of the attributes or types or whatever with this, because there's a lot of different variations between 101 and 107. For example, you can add the Tachyon Cloud Dragon by playing like the Star Seraph or whatever in your extra deck, which is, I believe, number 102? I don't know, I had it searched up a second ago. It does lock you out of Soul Flare, which is probably why I see a lot of modern lists not playing any of the Link monsters, either Soul Flare or Satellite Dragon, but honestly it's kind of worth it because 7th Tachyon is just such a strong card. Tachyon Spiral of Destruction allows you to activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect once per turn, so you can activate 3 of these cards, but you can only use each of the effects once per turn. If you control a Galaxy Seas, destroy all face-up cards your opponent controls whose effects are negated. So you're supposed to use this usually with Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon specifically. Or you can target a Tachyon card in your graveyard, except Tachyon Spiral of Destruction, add it to your hand. You can even add back the Counter Trap, which is really cool, because the Counter Trap actually isn't hard once per turn. Or you can target a dragon number in your grave and special in defense position. The third effect's probably the weakest one, funnily enough. But honestly, I don't think this card's like super crazy at all anyway, unless you are able to guarantee the search for it with something like Tachyon Primal. That way you can go into the Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon and use that to destroy all face-up monsters. But you just have way more ways to just either use destroy all those monsters, period, or use those monsters for damage fodder off of something like the Neo Prime Photon Dragon. The final card out of their new wave that isn't the other trap card, because honestly, I don't even remember. I completely forgot that trap card existed, and I probably just won't be going over it, is number S38 Titanic Galaxy, which is supposed to be slapped on top of Hope Harbinger. Again, 200 attack for each material attached to it, and once per turn, you can target up to 2 spells or traps your opponent controls and attach on this card as material, and the targeted cards and their effects cannot be activated in response to this effect's activation, and you can detach one material from it until the end of this turn. This card's attack becomes 1500, but it can attack directly. Funnily enough, I think original Hope Harbinger is just better than this card. So this card can't negate the things that it's attaching, so if you summon this and your opponent just chains something to the summon, or just activates it before you activate this effect, it's kind of completely useless. The stat boost is kind of irrelevant when you already have so many other much larger monsters in your extra deck, and why would you ever use that final effect? It sounds absolutely terrible. I would just keep Hope Harbinger on the board at that point. Now, I think other than maybe Fluffle, and even then it might be a stretch, there are like the most additional cards for the archetype that we are not playing out of any other deck we've ever covered on this series. So I'm not even going to go over their effects. I'm just gonna name everything that we aren't playing. Galaxy Knight, Galaxy Tyranno, Galaxy Dragon, Galaxy Claret, Galaxy Worm, Galaxy Eyes Cloud Dragon, Galactic Karibo, Paladin of Photon Dragon, Galaxy Cyclone, Photon Hand, Galactic Charity, Excellite, Numeron Creation, Galaxy Queen's Light, Photon Stream of Destruction, Galaxy Storm, Galaxy Journey, I don't know why I said Galax, Galaxy Wave, Galaxy Zero, Photon Time Stop, Tachyon Chaos Hole, Double Cypher, Eternal Galaxy, Tachyon Spiral Galaxy, Cypher Bit, Super Dimensional Robot Galaxy Destroyer, Neo Galaxy Cypher Dragon, I forgot this card existed, honestly, I have so many of it in real life, number C107 Neo Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, Neo Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon, Star Liege Lord Galaxion, Galaxy Stealth Dragon, number 83 Galaxy Queen, and Galaxy Satellite Dragon, not including any cards that say Cypher or Photon in their name, without including the word Galaxy in its text. Jesus Christ. Well, that is basically almost every single Galaxy card completely out of the way. Let's go ahead and get into those replays so my poor throat can get a rest.
You
Alright, that is it for the replays for Galaxy. I know some of them aren't like super crazy. I mean, to be fair, that last person straight up just set one pass, but we did have to play through three hand traps, so I think that kind of makes up for it. So starting off, let's go ahead and get into the strengths with the deck. Let's not waste any time here. Damage. Everything in this deck helps you push for some of the highest attack numbers in the game. As you can clearly see in the replays, Neo Prime plus Afterglow is just stupid. Combine this with every single one of your boss monsters being 3 to 4k minimum, and OTKs and beat sticks aren't a problem whatsoever. The deck has a decent chunk of extension so long as you can put at least one body on board. While it technically wasn't the best matchup since they, set one pass of course, you can see the hand play through 3 different hand traps in that last replay and still easily pull off the OTK, or at least it would have if they didn't scoop. As mentioned in the Gimmick Puppet Sleeper Sunday, rank 8 is probably the strongest pool of Xyz monsters out there, bar maybe rank 4, and so if you decide to ditch some of your archetypal Xyz monsters, it's not like you're gonna have a scarce selection of strong replacements and will always get more in the future. And finally, due to this deck being an anime archetype and already having a copious amount of support in the first place, the likelihood of it getting more and more support throughout the years is basically a given, so it's almost never done growing and changing as a deck. But of course, we can't talk about the strengths without at least acknowledging the weaknesses. So it may be a tale as old as time, but despite the mass amount of extenders, beatdown potential, etc., Galaxy doesn't really have any good starters. Sure, due to Galaxy Photon Dragon, Foolish, or 100 Send Jumper to add Trance is something, but it's not really great. This means you can be stuck with a handful of a bunch of dead big guys with extension effects, but no actual way to use them because your deck's all extenders. As mentioned in the strengths, going second is no problem for this deck at all, but despite the rank 8 pool access, going first is still kind of iffy. You have some solid disruptions like Soul Flare, Photon Lord, and Hope Harbinger all being in your own archetype, but you have to put so many resources into that, even if Lord searches for follow-up for you, that it just feels kind of clunky, and the lack of space for hand traps makes it feel like it's not enough. And finally, and this does fall sort of under the starter problem again, a lot of high-rank Xyz decks struggle with the same issue of having way too many big guys in the main deck that can end up significantly clogging your hand, even if we're only playing like 6 here. I didn't have too many issues as I expected with this compared to something like Gimmick Puppet, for example, but it's still very possible, and especially as a blind second deck, every card in hand counts, but at least they have the Molcharmies for that, which I probably should have wedged into the deck somewhere. So how are we making Galaxy better? Well, I feel like this is already one of the strongest decks we've covered, if not the strongest deck we've covered, so I only actually have 2 things here. Of course, I think the biggest method is to simply give them more of a good way to start. I could always just be generic here and say, give them a circular that dumps jumper or something, but I don't think I would mind actually just a normal summon that functions kind of like Galaxy Trance, either summoning a Photon or something from deck to get an instant Galaxy Photon Dragon, and that way you can still get jumper from your deck to kickstart your play, but it's a little bit more like disruptible and interactable for your opponent rather than literally just circular. And the only other thing I can really think of is, I know the extra deck space is really tight as is, but I think one more really solid way to put a disruption on board as a body would be sick as hell. Something that's kind of like Ryzel Detonator in a way, though preferably once per chain. Detach material, pop a card, and maybe restrict it to only being activated a card, but also give it a this card gains 1,000 attack each time sort of clause. That way you can start at a low attack, maybe like 0 to 1,000 or 2,000 or something to compensate, and worrying about it being punched over isn't actually that big of an issue because you're playing Hope Harbinger also on your end board usually anyway. But with that being said, I don't think there's really much else I can say about Galaxy Eyes. This deck probably had one of the most solid runs on any of my testing streams, which you can, of course, as always, see up in the annotation in the top right. I should have included it right after the replays. Genuinely, the consistency didn't feel too terrible. We could play through a handful of disruptions at least, and a lot of the times that I lost, it was usually due to my own fuck up, like I accidentally hit going first when I wasn't supposed to, or I didn't close out a game against Dark World properly like I should have, but otherwise, this was pretty damn good, and I think at this point on Sleeper Sunday, we're just covering more rogue decks than anything, because this list is actually from, I think, not first place, but like top 4 or top 8 at a regional. It might have been first or second place or something like that, I don't know, but this deck actually performed really well, and this is before including this support, again, remember. But yeah, with that being said, I think that's gonna have to do it for the video. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as I'll put this video and the channel into the YouTube recommended, and if you like this content or somewhere like it, like the rest of my Sleeper Sunday series, then perhaps consider subscribing and turning notifications if you haven't already, because it supports the channel and anything else, and it's absolutely free. Plus, it'll help you keep up with the polls for the Sleeper Sundays that we always put up in the community tab every single single month to decide which deck goes in the next episode. And speaking of which, if you miss me financially with getting some awesome perks such as choosing which decks go in the Sleeper Sunday polls in the first place, then check out my $5 Patreon tier in case you want to help go for that and get some other awesome perks like occasional early video access, exclusive PNGs that I no longer post over on my Twitter, and a bunch of other really cool goodies. And even if you don't put your name in the end card, you can always just subscribe to the $1 tier as well. Anything helps support me and my cardboard addiction. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.